With their consultants, representatives from the Government of Guam Retirement Fund testified in opposition to Bill 507 during Tuesday night's roundtable discussion. The legislation includes two provisions related to the GGRF: one, an early retirement program, and two, an extension of the amortization period to pay down the unfunded liability by 10 years. The Calvo administration maintains that combined, the provisions would cut spending by more than $60 million.
I think the perceived savings is fictitious.
The Government of Guam Retirement Fund's lead investment consultant, Wilshire Consultants, Maggie Rybovsky, said the bill would have significant and negative impacts.
The perceived savings is not there. In reality, it is actually going to significantly increase the contribution to the plan. The cost to Gov Guam and the cost to taxpayers may reach a point of unbearable level.
Rybovsky told senators the retirement provisions would actually increase long-term spending by an estimated $1.2 billion in fund contributions, and if implemented, would send the GGRF down the same path of the retirement fund in the CNMI.
Started the same way as this 10 years ago when somebody decided contribution is too high, they need to reduce contribution. Well, when you reduce contribution, there's consequences to the investment program that may cause you to enter into a point of no return, and that's a slippery slope.
Retirement Fund Board Chair Joe T. San Augustine said the legislation is like a dagger to the heart of the retirement fund. He suggested the governor implement furloughs and layoffs instead of having the fund bail out Gov Guam.
Why is the retirement fund now brought in the picture? It seems to be the only game in town or something. Why they couldn't resort to one? They reorganize. We used to reorganize the government of Guam, restructure it, cut down the staff, realign them, go to RIF notices, go to RIF if you don't need all these people. And if you need more money, you increase the tax base or go and borrow money. That's what we usually do. Issue bonds.
The governor's senior policy advisor, Arthur Clark, appeared before senators to dispel what he called these doomsday scenarios.
We think that those scenarios actually, one, aren't really germane to this issue, and we actually don't think that they apply, quite frankly.
Starting with the NMI Retirement Fund, Clark argued that contributions weren't being made because money was being spent elsewhere, but because NMI's general fund is broke, something that could happen here on Guam if spending isn't cut.
We start risking the overall health of the government, which includes the retirement fund, when we don't take into consideration the health of the general fund. And we've had 3 successive years of deficits, budget deficits. In prior, 15, 20 years prior now, we've grown accustomed to relying on the taxpayers to essentially loan money forcibly. They didn't offer it, but to loan money to the government of Guam to make up these shortfalls, and yet notwithstanding that, we're still falling short. And so, especially now in light of the district court decision that's come out, I mean, that's a practice that just has to end. It just stops now.
In terms of a RIF or reduction in force, Clark told senators that he thought that was something they were all trying to avoid.
Instead of forced layoffs here, the governor has come up with an option here for voluntary separation instead of forced layoffs. Let the people decide if they're ready to retire, if they're ready to stop full-time employment with the government of Guam, and if they can afford to take care of themselves. Otherwise, if we force people out and we start laying them off, we put families in situations where we don't know their individual circumstances and whether or not they're available to accommodate the loss of income.
By the end of the hearing, Retirement Fund board member Gerard Cruz said they're willing to work together.
We understand the issues that are happening within the overall government, and we want to do what we can in order to try to help solve those problems. And I think that if we were able to run some numbers, there are other ways to go about this, and if we're able to try to find some compromises, we may be able to find a happy medium somewhere. It's just that as presented, this bill, as we've tried to demonstrate, creates a situation that puts us, makes us very risky.
Vice Speaker B.J. Cruz is giving an additional 10 days for the administration to work with the retirement fund to come up with alternatives and to report back to the legislature.